Hey everyone, and welcome. I'm increasing social media engagement. I'm just going to post something over here in our group. Hope you all are having a fantastic Friday. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you're tuning in, say hi. Let me know where you're listening in from. It's always great to hear that. And let's see. Oops. All right. Okay. Here for everyone in our group and post this over on in our community group. Bear with me here for just a second. Okay. Okay, awesome. I think I'm finally done doing some admin work in the background here. Hi, Lori, good to see you. I'm glad you could join us again. I think we have a couple other people tuning in. So we'll just give everyone a chance to hop on here and join us, which is always great. All right. So I think as many of you know, my name is Vanessa Lockshin, and I'm really excited to be here with all of you to talk about increasing social media engagement for your nonprofit. I decided on this training topic partially because we asked everyone in our Facebook community group what we should do for this next live training. And excuse me, some of you had said that increasing social media engagement was something you're interested in. And I thought that was a really fantastic topic for us to cover this week because I know a lot of you put a ton of work into your social media content and you really want people to see it. You want people to engage with it and you want to feel like you're getting some kind of return on investment for what you're doing in social media. So I think this will be a really great session. I've got a few tips to share with all of you about things that you can do to organically increase this. And I want to say, for those of you who are tuning in later and watching this, feel free to leave a comment below. Let me know you're tuning in. I always come back and check comments and answer questions if you leave anything below in the comments of this feed. And of course, I would totally appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, be sure to go ahead and do that. So I would love to hear from all of you as we get started. And feel free to answer this question in the chat box. I would love to know, which social media channels are you currently trying to increase engagement on? Is it Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube? Feel free to let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you and just get a sense as to what everyone is working on. And I'm going to have a sip of my coffee and then take a look at comments here. Okay. I know for a lot of you, Facebook is a big one. And I hear all the time from our clients and from folks in our community group that Facebook is, a key channel for them. And with the ever decreasing ability to reach people through Facebook posts, that's certainly one that a lot of organizations are focused on. Yeah, Lori, you said LinkedIn. Great. And it's funny, I was talking to one of our clients earlier this year about LinkedIn because they were using it as one of their kind of outreach channels, and they had a good reason to be using it. And I thought it was really great that they had selected that as a channel to focus on. And I feel like there's lots of things going on LinkedIn, but there's not a lot of nonprofits who are out there doing really good content on LinkedIn. So I often wondered if there's not more of a place for organizations to kind of like carve out a niche there and be able to have great conversations and really cultivate some interesting conversations and interest in what their organization is doing. I just use interest a lot of times in that sentence. Anyways, let's go ahead and just dive into some tips and talk about some things here. We'll probably go for about 15 or 20 minutes. And as always, I'm happy to stick around longer and answer any of your questions. So tip number one for all of you is to tell your audience what's happening before it actually happens. And this is primarily more for like live video and things of that nature. It's a little harder to do this with like a text post or a video post, but I think you may be able to do that. If you are really trying to get more people to tune into a live video or a live stream that you're doing, it is a great idea to let them know when it's happening. For example, a lot of you who are tuning in here today to this will know that in our Facebook community group, I created an event for it. I sometimes send out an email to our email list to let them know about these live streams. And that's a great way for me to get more people to show up. And so we can all engage and have these great conversations. You can absolutely do the same thing for your organization. And I think for live streams in particular, which in a lot of algorithms are getting favored, it's great to be able to leverage that opportunity when it's live and happening so that you can have more interaction, more conversations with people. So you could do things like create event invitations, send an email to your email list. You can do save the date type posts. All of those things are really helpful. And as I said, this is definitely more applicable for a thing like a live stream video. But if you were going to make like a big announcement about something, later in the week or maybe a few weeks from now, you could also consider using this strategy to kind of tease out what's going to happen on your it is you are posting. All right, so the next tip, and I know this will be applicable for a lot, and this is one that I think has helped me and some of our clients tremendously this year, is something called engagement looping. And I heard a friend of mine refer to this concept as engagement looping, and I've taken that term from her, but I'll explain what this is. But basically, it is on any kind of social media post, you try the technique to continue the conversation and to keep it going. So I'll give you some examples, and it's not super easy to do here in YouTube Live, but let's say a Facebook Live that you were doing. You asked people to respond and maybe tell you things in the comments. And let's say you had people who were responding in real time. One of the things you could do is after that live stream is over, go back and respond to all of those comments, and not just with a sentence, respond with some kind of follow-up question to continue the dialogue. I have been amazed at how much that really has the ability to just can keep the conversation going. People come back because they're either surprised or interested that you responded. And you can keep that conversation going long after the live stream is over. Now, again, this is something you could do not just for a live stream. You could do this for text posts, photos, all sorts of other things you may be posting. I think it's kind of along the lines of a best practice for just responding to any sort of comments or interaction you get on social media. But I think the key difference here is that you're really trying to keep the conversation going. I had a friend years ago who would always say that there was no faster way to end a conversation on social media than with a period. So think about using questions, using other types of things that you would use in conversation to keep that going and to continue to get that kind of interaction. And yes, that absolutely takes a little extra work and a little extra thought to kind of keep things going for that post and that engagement. But I think that it's a really easy way to just leverage the engagement that you already have. So if you already have comments, if you already have people engaging with you, that's a great way to just keep the ball rolling on all of that. So a really good thing for you to try. I'm just going to check our chat box here. Great. All right. So let's talk about the next tip, which maybe I should have talked about first before engagement looping. But the thing, of course, about the engagement looping is that you have to have some engagement in order to be able to loop it and to continue those conversations. So how do you get those first comments? How do you get that first kind of interaction with your audience on some of those social posts? Well, by far, the easiest thing you can do is ask for those, and also specifically ask people in your organization's network to engage with it to start the conversation. I think this is a really underutilized technique by a lot of organizations. I think a lot about fundraising and how we often say, like a good portion of being able to get the gift is actually making the ask. Like if you don't ask, someone's not going to give. And I think we can apply that same concept over to social media as well, where if we're not asking for likes, shares, comments, we're probably not going to get them. People are not, apropos of nothing, just going to comment on something. So have a question, ask people to engage in some way, invite them to start this conversation with you. And if you're like, well, we've tried that and like not many people from our audience are just kind of like jumping at that opportunity, one of the things I would encourage you to do is look to your organization's more grassroots community. So your staff, your volunteers, board members, and engage them in this a little bit more. Ask them to participate in the conversation and help start some of that conversation. So there's then some social proof that people are in fact interested in this and engaging in conversation. I think that's a really great thing to be able to do to kind of just start to see some momentum. And the benefit, of course, of all of this is that as you have more people commenting and sharing things, hopefully you'll have an even better reach on that post. So that's a really great thing to consider as well. This is a great tactic to try in live video if you're doing a lot of live streaming. Some of you may recall a few minutes ago I asked you to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. That's a great example of that. And you can certainly do that in your videos as well. If you're doing live stream, periodically ask questions, ask people to share thoughts on things. These are all easy ways that you can kind of drum up that engagement and engage with that audience who is already watching you and already interested in that conversation. And so I would love to hear from all of you. Let me know, is this something you've tried before in your posts? So I know, Lori, you're tuning in here. Have you tried this on some of your LinkedIn posts where you've asked people to comment on something or ask their opinions on something you've posted? I'd be really curious to hear that and just see how that has worked for you. You can definitely let me know. I'll come back over to the comments here in a minute. I have 3 more tips for you, so let's keep this going. So tip number 4 is to look to your data for insights. This is a really important thing. And again, it's one that I think not enough of us leverage, is all of the social media data and analytics that we get from our accounts. There are so many ways you can utilize these analytics to try to better optimize what it is you're doing. Whether it's trying to figure out the best days and times to post based on when your audience is in that social media account. Whether it's trying to figure out what type of content to post more. Should it be video or photos or texts or links or something else or some combination of those things? It's really important to look at what's been working and what has not been working. And even if you've only got like a month's worth of data to look at, that's really valuable. And I would encourage you, if this is something you're trying to prioritize and trying to figure out, really make a concerted effort to look at your analytics on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or every other week or even once a month, just to consider these things. And not only just capturing the numbers and looking at the trends in the data, that's easy to do, right? It's easy to see like how much did this following grow by? How many new posts did we post? What kind of engagement did we get with it? The key thing that you really want to do, though, is in looking at all of that information is ask yourself, what am I learning from this? Or what can I take away from what this is telling me? And that's sometimes a hard question to answer. That requires a lot of strategic thinking on our part. But I think that's where we often are able to really leverage the data that we get from social media. And so if you haven't been asking yourself that question or some variation of that, I would really encourage you to do that, to add that into your review process. Don't just look at all the numbers and say, okay, this is great. Like I see these things. I think that's a really good thing to be doing and a fantastic thing to just make a regular practice in, whether in your social media or in fundraising or communications. It's a missing piece for a lot of us in a review process, and it's something that can make a huge difference. Yeah, so Lori, you said you only have about 20 followers on LinkedIn, so it's hard to get things rolling. Yeah, it absolutely can be. And getting that initial traction is really challenging. So one of the things I would encourage you to do if you're just trying to grow that following more is to just tell people to follow you there. So think about other communities and other ways you have to reach the people who might be following you in other places. So maybe you have an email list for your organization. Maybe you are regularly in touch with volunteers, anything like that. Anytime you have the opportunity to be in front of them and say, we're doing this new thing, come join us here. That's a great opportunity to engage those people on those channels. So sending out an email about it, letting people know, asking them to go follow you there is a really good thing to do. And I think that's a great organic way to tap into, again, kind of the grassroots network that your organization has to grow that following in other places. Yeah. Oh, and you said most of the board members you have aren't using it because of the age they are. Yeah, and I think that's challenging, right? Like sometimes we want our board to engage with social media and that's just not their thing. And that's okay. Like we have to look to other things, right? We have to think about our own personal networks. I can say when I was a board member some years ago, I often would look to my own personal networks of friends who I knew had shared values around this thing that I was volunteering for. And I would ask them, like, you should come hang out on the organization's Facebook page or donate to this thing I'm using money for. Like, I know you care about this as well. And it might be really interesting for you to just connect with this organization and hear more about the work they're doing in the community. So there's lots of things you can do like that to just use those networks. And this is a total tangent, but I'm going to share it anyways. In more of like a grassroots fundraising model, one of the things we talk about is the concentric circles of, I think it's called influence, but we also talk about it as like the concentric circles of fundraising. And if I had a whiteboard or something handy, I would draw it for all of you. But it basically looks like kind of like the circles are growing out, right? And we usually have like 3 or 4 of those circles. And in the inner circle is, of course, you, like you're at the center of that, and people who are the closest to you. So best friends, close family members, colleagues you've known for years and have really good relationships with. And the further you go out in the circles, the less your direct influence is on those people. And so the idea in fundraising, when we talk about like peer-to-peer fundraising, is to start with that inner circle first and work your way out, because that's where you'll probably have the most success with raising money and connecting with people because of the direct and personal relationship you have with them. So why am I saying this? You can apply the same thing as well, Lori, to how you think about growing your following on certain social media channels, and think about who are the people closest to you who would want to support this because they support you and they like what you're doing. And you can use that model for inviting people to follow you there and inviting that audience to grow a little bit more just based on the personal and grassroots networks that you have. Anyways, definitely a tangent from that. But that actually does lead me in very well to the next tip I had for all of you around increasing engagement, which was to ask your grassroots community for help. And so some organizations will do things like build pods of people to help kickstart engagement. And it's not quite as popular among nonprofits, but I actually do think this is a really good idea, where you basically sort of build a team of people or organizations who all support each other, who all agree to sort of promote and help each other's content. So you could do this with volunteers, for instance, and it maybe is a combination of staff and board and volunteers, where you maybe have a team of like 5 or 7 volunteers, and you all agree to just sort of help promote and highlight and raise up the profile of certain social media posts. That might mean liking it, sharing it, commenting on it, anything that they can do to sort of help support that initial conversation and getting that sort of thing going. Yeah, and Rhonda, you said you've done Instagram pods, but not with your nonprofit. Absolutely, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So if you've never heard of that concept before, I would totally encourage you to look that up. There's things like that for Instagram. There's YouTube pods. There's also, I'm pretty sure there's Facebook pods as well. But the essential idea is that you just bring together people or organizations who are all willing to collaborate and help each other with their social media and helping to sort of increase engagement. And it's a really easy way to help each other out, kind of advance everyone's work together. And again, get some of that engagement that you're looking for to hopefully increase your reach and encourage more people to engage with what you're doing. Yeah, so I would totally encourage you to think about that. And it's not a terribly hard thing to organize. And if you have some volunteers who are really interested in what your organization is doing, but they're not really sure what kind of volunteer role to take, or maybe they want to help you with communications, or they're really into using social media, this could be a really natural fit for them and something that they would be a really great resource for as you're thinking about that. All right, and so my last tip for all of you is to just think more about experimenting with what you're posting. So much of figuring out what works for your audience on social media is kind of one grand experiment, right? We're trying to figure out the right message, the right medium, the right channel, all of these things. And I know for so many of us, it feels like we're just trying to get like all these stars to align perfectly so that we can achieve the communications goals we want to achieve. And that's really hard sometimes. It feels like we're just constantly trying new things, constantly trying to figure that out. But again, I think with each experiment you do and with each new thing you try, whether it's a different type of post, a new channel, a new way of writing your copy, whatever that is, you can learn something valuable from that experiment or series of experiments. And again, I would just come back to that question I posed earlier of not just looking at the success and like the hard numbers of that experiment, but really asking yourself, what did I learn from this? Or what can we learn from this? What has this taught us about our audience? And being able to capture that insight somehow is so valuable. And just being able to remember that as you move forward so that you can keep making better decisions and you can keep moving towards what will actually work and finding that really great approach to your social media. It's definitely an ongoing journey. And I would say that it's not made any easier by the fact that platforms change. The culture is very different from platform to platform. There's algorithm changes. There's a lot of things that work against us. So sometimes we finally think we figured it out and something changes that's completely out of our control. And that makes it a little difficult. Like maybe several years ago, your organization was really rocking the text and photo posts on Facebook. And with the changes around video, it's been harder for you to catch up and you're not feeling as comfortable using video. And that's been sort of a learning curve. So there's all these things. And I totally get it. And I totally empathize with all of you who are just like, things are changing all the time. Where's the pause button? But I would say the more you can just kind of embrace the change and embrace the experiment and just be open-minded and be willing to continue to learn, the more you will set yourself up for figuring out what is working. And also, I think, lessening your stress level and headaches around that, which is never a fun thing to be dealing with. So those are my 6 tips for all of you. I hope they are helpful. I would love to answer your questions if you have channel-specific questions about social media, if there's things you're thinking about. Feel free to pop those in the chat box. And for those of you who are tuning in, again, I would love for you to give this video a thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, be sure to do that. I post weekly videos here on Tuesdays for sure, and sometimes Thursdays with fundraising and communications tutorials. And I'm always really happy to take your requests for new videos and figure out things that are great for all of you in terms of learning and helping you get ahead with your fundraising and communications. So I'm just gonna have some coffee and I will see if any questions come in and be really happy to help all of you and think about some of the things you're working on. And I will also say, just on the topic of YouTube videos, so I asked some of you in our Facebook group which organization's storytelling you admire, because I had posted a video, I think it was just last week actually, on how to tell stories like Charity Water. And it was really popular and people seemed to really enjoy it. And so I wanted to know what other organizations' storytelling you admired so that I could do more videos like that for you and help you unpack the strategy and approach that organizations are using in storytelling. And I had some people made some great suggestions and I'm really excited to work on some of them. I have another one of those coming out in about a week. It'll be how to tell stories like Best Friends Animal Society, which is one of my favorite organizations. And I'm excited to talk about some of their approach to storytelling on social media. So it'll be a nice tie-in to some of the things we talk about here today. And Rhonda, if you think about starting like an Instagram pod or anything like that with your nonprofit, I would love to hear how it goes. I think that would be a really fascinating idea for organizations. It's certainly popular sort of more in the business online world for nonprofits. I think it'd be really interesting for nonprofits to adapt something like that, and certainly something that a lot of you could see some results for. And Lori, I think you can even apply that to LinkedIn as well, as just kind of developing like a team or a pod who can help promote and grow what you're doing, and using that as, again, kind of a grassroots support system that can help you get ahead. All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's any questions, which is totally fine. But I will tell all of you, if you do have questions or you want to chat more about this after this episode is over, feel free to post in our Facebook community group, the Storytelling Nonprofit Lounge. I'd be really happy to continue this conversation with all of you there. Also, come back and leave questions below this video. Happy to correspond with you there as well. And yeah, Rhonda, let me know how it goes. I would love to hear about that. I think it would be a really fascinating experiment. Well, on that note, I will sign off for today. I hope you all have a fabulous weekend ahead and look forward to connecting with all of you